Marketer of the Day, number 407. Generate leads, drive sales, and grow your social outreach using interactive quizzes with Josh Haynam.
Welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. This is the online show where we connect you with the top experts, authors, coaches, and thought leaders in the world to deliver cutting-edge information, insights, breakthroughs, tactics, and strategies to ensure you build the most successful business possible and live your most fulfilling life.
Hey everybody, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now with Josh Haynam, and Josh is the co-founder of Interact Quiz Builder, which you can find at tryinteract.com. And this is a tool used by more than 30,000 businesses, including the American Red Cross, Home Depot, and Forbes. And Josh has seen more quizzes than any other human on earth right now. So if you want to hear about what he knows, if you want to hear about how to use quizzes to generate leads, drive sales, and grow your social outreach, then this will be the most important podcast episode you listen to today. So Josh, how are things?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. You're from Turlock. I'm in Turlock, so what a small world. And so I want to know about this Interact Quiz Builder thing. I want to know about, what is it? Why'd you make it? All that fun stuff. So do you have an interesting story about all that?
Yeah, I can jump right into it. So basically what it is a tool for making quizzes like the ones that you see all the time on Facebook, right? They're like super annoying at this point. Like all your friends are posting which kind of animal they are and what their spiritual animal is and all that kind of stuff. So that's what the tool is for. But what it actually does for businesses is it helps you grow your email list, because within those quizzes, you can ask people to put in their email address and that goes into your list. And there is kind of a funny story about how it started. It started by accident, actually. Myself and Matt, my co-founder, were web developers, so we were building people's websites. And one guy, he was kind of an older guy, asked us to do a sales personality quiz for him, and we thought it was kind of a dumb idea, as a lot of people think when they think of quizzes. They're like, oh, that's silly. But we built it, and that thing converted so well, like 75 times better than some of the websites that we built that took us like months to build. So it was kind of crazy. That's where the idea came from. We figured out that quizzes were just an amazing way of converting web traffic and Facebook traffic into leads. And then from there, we built out a whole platform. So now anybody can build a quiz. You can build that same sales quiz in like 30 minutes now that we built for him back in the day. And you can build a quiz for pretty much anything and share it out on Facebook and your website and convert all that traffic into email addresses, which you can follow up with.
Super awesome. And I love this idea. I love this strategy. I love having something out there that makes us unique compared to everyone else, just like, collecting a name and email address and collecting something in exchange for a white paper or a report or something. I think that part's interesting, like the standing out from the crowd part of things. And the other thing that's interesting is isn't it kind of funny when sometimes you have to put your copywriting head out the window, right? Or just put the copywriting sort of instincts aside, because it's always funny how you have a landing page, and then that whole idea of you have a page, you click on a thing, and then an opt-in box pops up. You'd think that sort of thing would decrease conversions, but that kind of thing seemed to increase conversions. Or sending cold traffic to a membership sign up form as opposed to an opt-in form. Again, sort of a surprising result there. And then same deal with the whole idea of a quiz. You'd think that giving somebody extra steps and extra things to click on would be a huge no-no, but then like you said, all these sites all over Facebook use them, BuzzFeed uses them. So am I correct in and it sounds like it, am I correct in assuming that by having a quiz on a page as opposed to a normal opt-in, even though you'd think that extra clicks would mean lower conversions, the fact that it's a quiz means it's way more has a way higher conversion rate? Is that right, or on the right track?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we've seen 100% increase on average. So you just swap out all your ebooks for a quiz, 100% increase. We've seen cases where it's gone up 300 or 400% because it is different. It's a different proposition. It makes you stand out. And I think if you think back to the whole history of internet marketing, right? We started with banner ads. At first, those worked super well. And then we got banner blindness. They stopped working basically at all. Then we switched over to doing things like ebooks and white papers and downloads. So it wasn't just like a static banner. There was one step in between that kind of drew people in. That worked really well. Now that's starting to die off. Then we had other techniques like the click to, open the opt-in box and then you opt in, the two-step opt-in type of thing. that worked really well, and then now it's still doing okay. But then the quiz is kind of the evolution of that, where instead of asking people for their information so quickly, you have this whole scripted conversation with them through the questions of the quiz, where you're going back and forth, they're answering questions, you're getting to know them, and then at the end of it you say, would you like to opt in to receive more information about the subject of this quiz? And it's a no-brainer. So I think it's just a natural evolution of what's happened online as people have gotten more and more privy to what's going on. You kind of have to do more legwork up front before you collect those leads. And so that's why I think it works so well, because it does on average double those opt-ins on your website if you just replace all the ebooks with a quiz.
That makes perfect sense. And especially the part about how, like, if things are super crowded these days and maybe the average subscriber, the average internet user is maybe a little more, they have a little bit more knowledge of things than maybe the average internet user did years ago. So I completely understand if they want to try you out a little bit and see if they connect with this quiz before signing up. And so when we're talking about a quiz, like, have you found like an optimal length or an optimal number of questions or something like that, just so that we can get a handle on, because like someone says a quiz to me and I'm not sure if that means like 2 or 3 questions or 100 questions. So is there like an ideal size or range of sizes?
Yeah, so the ideal is 7 questions, and 7 questions takes about 2 minutes for the person to go through all those questions and kind of think through their answers and select them. And the reason you want it to be in that range is that it gives you enough time to really connect with that lead, with that prospect, and do some back and forth. They answer the questions, they're getting drawn into it, they're starting to be curious about, which result am I going to get, that kind of thing. But it's not so long that you start to lose them. You get into like 10, 15 questions and people are like, all right, this is too much. So 7 questions is perfect. You want to have lots of images in those questions so they can just click on the picture that represents them best. And that's how you kind of get them to flow into it and almost forget that they're even doing a lead generation thing. It's like, oh, this quiz is fun. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, if you'd like more information, you can opt in. Usually the quizzes have a skip this step on the opt-in form, so you don't have to force people to opt in. But they usually want to, because they're curious by that point about, what their results mean and all that kind of stuff. So 7 questions is ideal.
Okay, so 7 questions. And do you recommend that people ask for an opt-in at the end, or is there a capability to ask for it halfway through or something like that?
Definitely at the end, because the whole draw is that you want to reveal the results. So, the opt-in form will say, enter your email to see what type of animal you are, and we'll send you updates on conservation. For example, like if you were the World Wildlife Fund or something, that's what you would say. So you want to have it after the last question.
Okay, and then if I'm hearing you right, you recommend that people take the quiz, and then the only way they can get the results of the quiz is if they enter their email. Is there no way to just put the answers right there on the page?
So the results are also right on the page. I realized that was a little bit confusing. So they're shown right on the page, but you do have to put in your email in order to reveal them. So it's like behind the little gate.
So could you explain that one more time? So they take the quiz, and so they do see their results on the page, or they don't?
They do. So the flow of it is you get to the page, you start taking the quiz, you answer the 7 questions. After you answer the 7th question, a form comes up and says enter your email to reveal your results. Once you do that, your results are revealed right on that same page within the same window that you've been taking the quiz.
Okay, and then if they choose to skip the step of opting in, then they don't see the results?
They still do, which is, kind of controversial for some people. They want to force people to opt in, which you can do. You can turn off the skip this step, but we always recommend leaving it on so that you're not getting leads that are kind of begrudgingly opting in.
Okay, that makes sense. So they don't just put in like a fake email address just to get some sort of results or something.
Right.
Okay, so cool. So you say so, and I like that wording, by the way, too. It's enter your email address to reveal the answers. If they skip that, they'll still get to the revealing. It's just like to do this, do that, right?
Yep, exactly.
Well, cool. And then so 7 questions is ideal. And then do you have any sort of template or any sort of thought process to decide what type of quiz it is and what type of questions to ask? Because you mentioned that you had that person that asked you guys to make a sales personality quiz. So do you recommend that? Is there like a one size fits all template or starting point, or does it just depend on the niche and the offer and things like that?
Yeah, so it definitely depends. But what we've done is we've got about 175 templates now, and you can sort them by categories. So if you're in like business and marketing and blogging, let's say, you can select those three categories. It'll show you a bunch of quiz templates like what's your blogging personality, what type of marketer are you, what type of content should you be creating, stuff like that. And then you can sort those by conversion rate, just like you do with a tool like Lead Pages. And you can select the highest converting template for your industry, and then obviously modify it however you want. But you don't have to start from scratch because it can take a really long time to make a quiz. But all of our templates are already made, and they convert super well. So you can just literally grab one and go with it.
That's super cool. So they can choose one that's in their niche and is high converting, and then just load it in and then customize it, make it their own.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then as far as the questions themselves, you mentioned that you recommend that people put lots of pictures and things like that in the quiz. So when we're talking about going through the steps of a quiz, is it just multiple choice, or is there like a slider or a freeform answer, or like what are we talking about when we're talking about the questions we're asking on a quiz?
Yeah, so the questions, we recommend having a text question. So it's literally just like one sentence of text that asks you a question. And then the answer choices are images. So for example, if you were to ask what's your ideal vacation spot, that would just be text. And then the answers would be like a picture of a beach, and it would say beach. And then a picture of the mountains, and it would say mountains. And it would say like a picture of Thailand, and it would say Thailand. And you would click on the one that represents you, and we found that format to actually work the best out of every single, we've tested all the formats for quiz questions, and it's always best to just have a quick text question and then images that represent the answers, and that helps people flow through the quiz like really smoothly.
Yeah, I imagine that it would be easy just to kind of read that one sentence, and then you don't even almost have to read the answer, just like see whatever the first image that pops out at you and click it.
Right. Yeah. So obviously, like, we process images so much faster in our brains, right? So you want to have the images so that people don't get overwhelmed with like reading all the answer choices, and they're like, oh, geez, I don't know which one. But if you just can click on a picture, that's super simple. But you want the question to be text so that that's also like the first thing that they read, and then they look down to the images to select the one that's right for them.
Okay, cool. So they go through this quiz, they answer 7 or so questions, and they answer questions that are a little bit of text and then images that they can choose based on multiple choice answers. They get to the end, it says, or enter your email address to reveal the answers, and they can skip that or enter that. And then when it reveals the answer based on their questions, how does that part work? Like, is it like a point system with the questions, and then you say, like, if they fell into a certain range based on their answers, here's the answer? Or how does someone who's using your tool to make a quiz score and show the results based on what people said as answers?
Yeah, so we have 3 options for that. One is the personality quiz, which is your standard, like, what type of blogger are you? And the personality quiz works through correlations. So every time you ask a question, each of those answer choices correlates to one or more of the outcomes, the results, and whichever result has the most correlations pointed to it by the time the person answers all the questions is the one that's revealed as the result. So that's personality scoring. Then we have the scored system, which is a tally. So every answer choice has a certain number of points associated with it. And then your outcome or result is based on a range of scores. So if you fall into this range, you get this outcome, this range, you get this outcome, that type of thing. And those are the ones that are like the ones that were printed on the back of magazines back in the day. So that's that type of quiz. And then we also do assessments, which are true or false or correct answer quizzes. So how much do you know about the German election? They actually just did that over in Germany because they just had their election. And they had, how much do you know about the election? Every answer has a correct choice, and your outcome is based on how many you get correct. So you'll see a different outcome depending on how many you get correct on the quiz.
Okay, cool. So there's the personality type where you just basically say, like, based on the rank, like, this question is associated with this answer. So it just, if I'm understanding you right, that personality type of quiz is like, what did they have the most of? What's the majority, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Majority wins.
And so majority wins with the personality, and then the scored the score quiz is where they answer stuff and that gives them points, and then you can say like 5 to 15 is this answer, 16 to 25 is that answer. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely correct.
And then the assessment is just kind of like a test in school, true or false, multiple choice answers. Either you're correct or you're not correct.
Yep, spot on.
Super cool. And so, there's those sort of three types of scoring. And so, am I right in hearing about this, that you can use this for more than just list building if there's the possibility for them to pass or fail some stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you can use it to segment people. Like you can add people to a different list based on their score or their personality type. You can do things like that. You can use it to just engage people using these different quiz formats. So there's a lot you can do with it. It gets really, really flexible in terms of all the things that you can use this tool for.
Super amazing. And I'm looking at tryinteract.com, and I'm looking at the like the screenshots and stuff like that, and I'm seeing that at the end of the quiz, so they answer all that stuff, and then at the end they can see how they did, and then there's like a social sharing component afterwards, right?
Yeah, so you can share your results. You could say, I got dolphin, what's your spirit animal? And put that out onto Facebook and Twitter and things like that. So it's a viral component that's built right in, and we've seen quizzes just like go bonkers, like 1 million people taking a quiz in a day because it just goes crazy and everyone's sharing their results. So you got a viral component built into a list building tool, which when has that ever happened before? That's like a first.
Right, you guys are innovators. Well, cool. And then I imagine that as far as that sort of getting a quiz to catch on and going viral, I imagine that like maybe if things are more like business focused, they won't go as viral as something that's like, like a celebrity gossip type of quiz. Is that right?
To some extent. Well, so basically there's one thing that you have to do, and you have to put the quiz in the format of which type of blank are you or what type of blank are you, and then it really doesn't matter. So what type of business owner are you? We've seen that exact quiz do 1 million views, and then we've also seen what type of coffee drink are you do 1 million views. So it kind of works for any industry as long as you put it in that format. And the reason that format works so well is because it promises to tell people something about themselves. And so if you tell people something about themselves, it's revealed to them, then they want to share that thing about themselves, and that's where the virality comes from. So if you're setting it up in that format, it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, and you actually want to make sure that you keep your quiz on brand. So if you're selling to business owners, make it what type of business owner are you? If you're selling coffee, make it what type of coffee drink are you? And then just put it in that format, and you'll basically have similar chances of success in terms of like getting lots of shares.
That's super awesome, because that seems like that's always the difficulty in getting something to go viral, right? Either it's too much of a niche or it's too mass market. But by saying what type of web designer are you, or what type of copywriter are you, or what kind of realtor are you, that makes a lot of sense. So people want to know more about themselves, and then once they find it, then they want to share it.
Yeah, exactly. So it melds those two. So it's like you're appealing to a broad audience because it's the link which kind of just appeals to the exact type of people that you want to reach for your business.
Yeah, that is super cool. And then as far as, so once people, they use your service, they grab a template, they customize it, they make it their own, and then it's time to put it on a web page. I imagine that this works anywhere. Like you can use it, link to a page on your site, or embed it on any other web page we have.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can use a direct URL for the quiz, which just opens it up full screen in a tab, or you can embed it with an iframe into anywhere on your website, just like you'd embed a YouTube video.
Super great. And then as far as the pricing, what are we talking here?
So it starts at $29 a month, or if you pay annually, it drops down to $17. So it's like $200 a year. So it's pretty much on the cheap end in terms of lead generation tools in general. And it's much more powerful because you can also use the tool to segment your list based on how people answer questions or which outcomes they get and things like that. So it's a little bit more powerful than just like a pop-up tool, but it also does collect those leads for you. So really, really reasonably priced.
Right, I agree. And then when people join and they begin using your tool, are there any features that people either skip over and should use, or things that are maybe like more on the advanced or crazy side that is just like super powerful, a feature that you wish more people would use of your tool?
Yeah, I think the personalization is vastly underused. I mean, we do have a lot of folks that are now sending out different sequences of emails depending on which personality somebody gets or which score they get. But there's so much you can do with that. I mean, you can send out emails that reference their personality for like months afterwards, and we have integrations with all the marketing automation programs. So you can tag the leads based on which outcome they get. Now you can even tag them based on how they answer particular questions, which gets even more powerful. So like if you ask somebody, how big is your email list? And that's one of the questions on your quiz, then you can send them a different email if they have 0 versus if they have 10,000, which is obviously super powerful because you don't want to tell those people the same advice. So I think there's so much more that can be done with using the data that people are giving you, answering quiz questions in order to personalize all of your email follow-ups and your website follow-ups afterwards.
Right, I completely agree. Like you're making my head spin as well about all this, as far as like, because you always hear about segmenting your list or asking them survey questions and things like that. But then like who really wants to click on that and fill that in, and how can you really trust the results? But if they're checking out a quiz, of course they're going to enter factual information because they want to get a factual result back. So this is sort of interesting that they're helping get themselves more customized to you, and they don't even really realize it. They just think they're having fun filling in a quiz.
Exactly. And then it works both ways too, because like, the thing that's annoying about marketing and advertising is when we keep getting messages sent to us that we're not interested in, right? Like we keep getting this ad for some sort of shoes and it's like, I really don't care. Like maybe it's even like the wrong gender, and it's like, why would I want that? But if you took a quiz and you like clicked on them, like the different pairs of shoes that you like, and then you started seeing ads for those, it's way less intrusive because it's like, okay, well, you just said you like those. Maybe here's a discount on one of those pairs of shoes or something like that. So it's a win on both sides. It allows companies to easily segment, which, as you say, like a lot of people aren't doing it because it's difficult to get that data, or like it's just difficult to build it into your actual email marketing system, something like that. So quiz is a super easy way to do that, but also it ends up giving the consumer what they want as well, because they're literally telling you what they want and then you're spitting it back to them.
Yeah, imagine that. It's complex and simple at the same time. So
Yeah.
So as we're kind of winding down our conversation here, like, you say there's 175 templates in your tool and you have all these really big time customers that use it. Do you have any things to stay away from when it comes with quizzes? Any sort of like recommendations on what not to do when using your tool?
Yeah, I think one of the traps that a lot of people fall into is they hear about this thing where you can segment your list based on data. And then when they go to make their quiz, they're like, okay, what data do I want? And they start there, and then they try to write questions. But that's backwards, because if you're thinking about what you want, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be writing questions that people actually want to answer on your quiz, and you can end up with a really boring quiz. So you want to start by thinking about, okay, how do we fit this quiz into the what blank are you format? And then what kinds of questions do our customers actually want to answer? And then how can we use that to formulate a quiz? And then at the end, you can circle it back and say, all right, what can we do with this data? But you want to start with what the customer is interested in and what they're interested in answering when you're formulating a quiz or selecting a template even, rather than starting with what you want. The only quizzes I've seen like fall flat on the face is when people start with what they want, and it never goes well.
So an example of the marketer, the example of what not to do, like if a marketer says, I can ask them all these questions, and maybe a marketer would say, oh, I'll have a question where I'll ask them if they're male or female or what age range they are or something like that. And that seems like, is that what you're talking about? Like as far as like a quiz with some really boring questions?
So like one really good example would be like, how much do you know about the Internet of Things? From a company that sells you knowledge about the Internet of Things. And it's like really obvious that they're just asking you how much you know so that they can segment you into like their advanced guides versus like their beginner guides. Versus if you wanted to make that a fun quiz, you do like, what's your Internet of Things personality, or which Internet of Things gadget are you, which would be awesome and hilarious. And then you could ask virtually the same questions. Like you could ask people how much they know about the Internet of Things, like how it works, how it's connected, that kind of stuff, in order to reveal which gadget they are. And then you can still use the data. But it's so much different than asking somebody how much do you know about the Internet of Things, which is like an obvious play for a company that sells Internet of Things software and tools and stuff to just get your lead information. So you flip it around and you start with something that's fun, and then you use the data, and you end up asking similar questions, obviously, but you can use the data still after the fact.
I like that, and that's a very important distinction there, as opposed so it's not how much do you know about blank, it's which type of blank are you.
Yeah, and like I said, you can end up asking similar questions, but you're giving the people that are taking the quiz some sort of fun outcome rather than like quizzing them like in school, which no one likes, and you're making something that's much more interesting to them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Who cares about test your knowledge about whatever, and then I'll tell you what you don't know, as opposed to figure out what your taste is. So like the tool will tell you what you deep down already know about yourself, but you aren't aware of it exactly.
Right, exactly.
Cool. Well, fun stuff. Well, this sounds like a great way for people to have a more interesting way of building their list, to get things more dialed in as far as who their customers are, what do they want, what do they need to see more of, and just that it just makes things a lot more fun because after someone takes that quiz, not only can they opt in, but they can share it and tell their friends and see how their other friends do. So this sounds like an amazing tool. Everyone should be using it. Everyone needs to have some sort of a quiz on their site. So make sure you go to tryinteract.com. And so is there a good a web page other than tryinteract.com they should go to, or is that just the place to be?
That's the main one. I mean, our whole flow is like you can sign up totally free. You don't have to like do any sort of obligation. You can start playing around with those templates and see what's available in your industry so that you can kind of get a feel for like what might actually work for your business before you really commit to anything. So you're able to play with all of that. So definitely check out tryinteract.com, play around with the templates, see if you can find something that works well for your particular company.
Great stuff. So make sure to go there. That's tryinteract.com. And I got to say, Mr. Josh, like I looked at some other quizzing tools. I've talked to some other owners of these quizzing apps on the podcast, but I've never seen the template part of this used, and I've never seen a place where there's so many templates, 175 templates. So that way someone can just drill into their niche, grab something that has a high conversion rate and customize it. And I think that just that feature alone, like maybe other quiz platforms have it, but if so, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen just the ability to pick up a template and customize it. I always dreaded using one of those quiz tools because I thought, oh, I'm going to have to think of an interesting quiz. I'm going to have to make all these questions. I'm going to have to rearrange things and all these unknowns, all this guesswork. But if it has a template in there, sounds like a great way to hit the ground running.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we implemented those templates, it cut down the time that it took people to make a quiz by almost 2/3. So it really, really changes the game in terms of how much effort you have to do to try this out. And obviously, most people haven't done quizzes for marketing before, so you don't want to invest like 10 hours before you even get to try something. You want to invest like 20, 30 minutes, get it up on your website, see if it works. And then if it does work, you can go back and like change all the stuff. But you want to get up and running as quickly as possible, which is why we built all those templates, and you can just select one that works exactly for your type of business.
Perfect. So you guys listening, if you want that, which I think you do, you need to go to tryinteract.com to, number one, have this interesting new way of building a list and segmenting your list, the quiz on your site. Number two, the ability to put it anywhere. You can link to the exact page or put the iframe code, whether you have your site on WordPress or Wix or some other platform, whatever. You just add the code there and you can have a quiz on any site that you have on the internet. And then finally, number three, there's all these amazing templates that you can pick up. And you heard it from the man himself. People used to take forever to make their quizzes, but now they just grab a template, they're up and running, they're rocking and rolling. So make sure that you are using quizzes yourself in your business by going right now to tryinteract.com and go in there and click on the button and get signed up and begin using this tool within the next few minutes. So I want to thank you, Mr. Josh, for stopping by and telling us about your Interact tool and telling us about the best practices, the do's and don'ts when it comes to quizzes. I hope that literally everyone that listens listens to the episode today goes to your site and puts a quiz on their site, because I think it's just that important. So thanks for stopping by the show and sharing the stuff with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed that.
Please follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Robert Plank. That's twitter.com/Robert Plank. And while you're adding me, also like Marketer of the Day on Facebook by going to facebook.com/Robert Plank Show.